Welcome, listener, traveler. I have something a little different this time. I thought you might go on a little rabbit hole dive with me on a little bit of trivia. So we're gonna do a little bit of trivia. It's gonna be a bunch of kind of useless D&D trivia. It's always nice to have in the back pocket. I'll give you the answers after I ask the questions, but let's get into it. Our first piece of trivia is on how Gith reproduce. So, Gith are species known in the D&D world. I'm looking at not just 5e, but other different pieces as well. Gith reproduce. The answer is they reproduce by laying eggs, which is bizarre, but you probably already knew that if you've played Baldur's Gate. They reproduce laying eggs. Females lay up to 6 eggs in a clutch, and they have hatcheries containing hundreds or thousands of nests of their kind. So, that's Gith. Next question. What creature had the abilities of a blink dog, but used it to land on top of their enemies? I'll give you a second to think. Abilities of a blink dog, but lands on top of their enemies. There is in the not necessarily monstrous compendium from April of 1990 a blink woolly mammoth stat block that has the same abilities as a blink dog, but attempts to land on top of its enemies and crush them, knocking them unconscious, which is always an amusing one. Our next question is a little bit more obscure. How many classes were there in 3rd edition? 3rd edition had a lot of different things, not including Paragon classes, NPC classes, prestige classes, variant classes, generic classes, monster classes, transition classes, or epic progression. If you don't include any of those, there are 58 base classes. Thus why 3rd edition is a complicated guy that not everyone plays anymore. Usually it's just those hardcore 3rd edition fans. What edition, our next question, what edition of Demogorgon's pronouns, in what edition were the Demogorgon's pronouns she, her? Where was the Demogorgon, who is known to be like the Prince of Darkness, I believe? When was he or they known as she, her? Answer is basic Dungeons and Dragons. In the Immortal Rules box set back in 1986, there were actually Demogorgon stat. There's actually a Demogorgon stat block with a she/her pronoun. Our next question: what creature absolutely abhors magic, relies on psionics and science to fight their enemies? This is coming from 1st edition, so if you're not 100% sure, you would be in the right with this being first edition. The answer actually is Aboleths, which makes sense now you think about them. They despised all magic, and they actually formed a caste system where the scientists were near the top, and they targeted spellcasters to kill them and remove magic from the world, which was written in 1988, it looks like. There was a detailed Ecology of the Aboleth book written. Our next question. What was the purple worm originally a variant of? So purple worm is a monster you can fight or ride if you're very, very lucky and you feel like you're in Dune. It is a flightless variant, technically, of a dragon. Originally, they had a kind of worm version of a dragon, and in 1974, we had the dragon being, one of the dragons being the purple worm. We also had basilisks and cockatrice, both considered dragon variants, so intriguing. It's interesting. How do you transform a dragon into a dracolich? I can't guarantee you how accurate this is, so keep with me, but if you're curious, it requires a dragon to consume a special elixir made by combining 7 ingredients in an inert vessel. The ingredients in this exact order are 2 pinches of arsenic, 1 pinch of belladonna, 1 pint of phase spider venom, no more than 30 days old, 1 quart of virgin long-lived demi-human blood, or, if that's not available, a gallon of treant sap, no more than 7 days old, a quart of vampire or person infected with vampirism blood, also no more than 7 days old, 1 potion of evil dragon control, and 1 potion of invulnerability. You add the ingredients, you stir the concoction with a +2 Dragon Slayer sword under the night of the full moon. And honestly, I have to read more about this. Where that was written, because that is genuinely baffling. Where was this written? Oh, and that's not even a full thing for sure. Once the dragon consumes the potion, then you pray to the dark deity that you worship. And once you do that, then there is a 54% chance that the potion will work. Where these people are getting this information from, I don't know. Guessing this looks like 2nd edition with the way the art looks right now. I'll include a picture of the dracolich that I'm looking at here. It's really going through all of them. Very interesting. Next question. How does a gelatinous cube reproduce? I've never even thought of this before. I kind of assumed that they would split, kind of a symbiosis, and just kind of split up into 2 things, but turns out they develop buds on their surface, so they do produce asexually, and then they leave the buds, they deposit them into the dungeon as small rubbery cubes, and are left in the corners until they begin to grow up and get big enough that they can eat others. Our next question. How many Bigby's hand spells were there? Whoa, I had no idea. They made a really good decision putting that all into one more very complicated spell. Bigby's hand, if you're curious, originally, there were 17 options for Bigby's hand, and I'm not going to list all of them, but the idea is it would be Bigby's clenched fist, Bigby's crushing hand, Bigby's forceful hand, grasping hand, disrupting hand, interposing, etc. So each thing that you would do with the hand would be a different spell instead of it being one spell where you could choose to do any of the options. That's really interesting. Here's a little piece of trivia. How many monsters were in the second edition of Dungeons and Dragons? If you're guessing 3,000-ish, think up. If you're thinking 5,000, think down. There are just over 4,230 monsters in the second edition. And only 3 of them are kobolds. Look at that. Our next question. What edition did the Artificer first appear? So Artificers, if you don't know, are... I guess you would almost call them scientists. You would call them tinkerers. They usually do mechanical things instead of magic, or their magic is often flavored as mechanical things. So I'm actually interested that the Artificer appeared in 2nd edition actually as a subclass for wizard, which makes sense. The wizard is focused in storing and channeling magic to be used later on, and then they end up getting a laboratory that kind of lets you do those artificery things like making magic items or doing that kind of a thing. But it actually had a monthly fee equal to 50 GP times your level, and if you don't use the laboratory, then you lose like all of your artificer abilities, which is crazy. Here's a fun one. There is a version of the male Medusa. If you haven't heard of that before, there's a version of the male Medusa called the Maidar. It was introduced in 1986, and it's essentially the opposite of a Medusa. Go figure. All males, they have the ability to turn stone back into flesh, as well as pass through stone, which is just a wild ability to be able to turn stone back into flesh and have that be all you can do. That's some fun facts for you. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you found this kind of content interesting or you'd like to hear more of it, you're welcome to comment, leave me a note that you'd like it, or there's also some spell questions I can do. But yeah, all sorts of little trivia things I'm thinking of doing while I'm writing my next story. So I've got some things cooking in the background here. We've got possibly another voice actor joining us for a bit of a series. So that's very exciting. I'm very looking forward to that. Other than that, I hope you have a pleasant afternoon, sleep, morning, whatever time it is for you. Have a good day.